Ellen White says meeting is not a test. She says from the beginning of her ministry to the end of her ministry that even unclean foods is not a test. We've made it into a test, but she says it's not a test.
Coffee and tea are now accepted by modern science to be beneficial to one's health. Why did Ellen White prohibit coffee drinking and tea drinking?
Yeah, I'm going to suggest when you get to heaven, you can ask her. But I do know this. That there's a lot of people who can't make it without 6 or 7 cups of coffee or more. Now, I don't like coffee. That makes it much easier. But once in a while, I will take a half of a no-dose rather than crash my car. Okay? And you know what 1/2 of what no-dose does for me? It wires me. And suddenly I realize people who are into 2 quarts of coffee before breakfast or before lunch, they are wired. They're into a mild narcotic. And what you have is they go through withdrawal if they don't get enough of their fix. Okay? We're just dealing with a stimulant here. And like most things in life, all stimulants and downers need to be used with great care and can easily be abused. I'm pretty careful. The base text for Adventist lifestyle, I used to teach a course in the history of Adventist lifestyle. Whether you eat or drink, do all,
To the glory of God.
whatever you do it to the glory of God.
Okay.
And that's my motto.
Looks like these questions are going to the fringes here now. What do I eat? Does Matthew 15:11 make it all right to eat seafood?
What kind of seafood?
Anybody has Matthew 15:11? Matthew 15:11.
Well, try Mark 7. Jesus declared all foods clean.
Okay.
Yeah, the Clear Word Bible didn't like that one, so it just dropped it out. I mean, it's like it doesn't exist. No. Jesus made all food clean, but not healthy. What we're talking about in the New Testament is nearly always ceremonial cleanliness. The food things in the Jewish culture were not health related, they were ceremonial related. However, you go back to Genesis for clean and unclean foods. And out of Genesis, not Leviticus. Leviticus and Deuteronomy only explain what the unclean foods are. You can't base your doctrine on that. You have to go back to Genesis. God never gave us permission to eat unclean foods, and he tells us that there's some seafoods that are not clean. Now, if that means fish, I do know that Jesus ate fish with his resurrected body. Of course, I have a friend that says, well, Jesus didn't know any better. and catch this one. Somebody told me, Jesus didn't have the spirit of prophecy.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
All I can say is this. Jesus ate fish with his resurrected body. I would suggest we're not dealing with sin. I would suggest with all foods. We're dealing with those that are best, a little less than best, clear down to worst. And we ought to be eating the best possible thing. And sometimes that's not the strictest diet. Ellen White went to people in Norway. There was some guy up there, I mean, he was really freaked out, man. He couldn't find nothing to eat because he didn't eat fish. And Ellen White says she took one look at him, man, he was wimpy. White, anemic. She says, brother, you better get some fish. And, we have made such a big thing out of misreading Ellen White on diet. Okay, now I do believe that vegetarian diet is the best. I believe that you have to watch out for a vegan diet because it's easy to miss essential components, especially in the B complex realm. Traditionally, vegans do not live as long as vegetarians. with a little bit of egg. Take Dr. Kress. I'm beyond eating raw eggs. I used to eat them, but I don't eat them anymore. That was before I became an Adventist. Crack them into milk, put some vanilla in there, man, eggnog. Where am I going with this conversation?
You should try balut. Never.
Kuya Bing. Kuya,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
you were asking Matthew 15:11?
Oh, yeah.
What goes into someone's mouth does not defile
same.
them.
Yeah, we're talking about defilement.
Comes
we're not
out of their mouth is what defiles
Yeah,
them.
we're not talking about what's
you.
good to eat. We're talking about Jewish symbols of defilement. It just so happens that nearly all of the defiling animals of Deuteronomy and Leviticus are also the unhealthiest animals. They're scavengers and that sort of thing. But Ellen White herself, in 1863, started advocating a vegetarian diet. In 1894, she was still eating meat when she got her last 8 teeth removed. And after that, she still ate fish. It was not the center of her message. Now, she was a vegetarian by the time she died. Like I said, from Genesis, passage in Isaiah, I believe that God's ideal. I don't think we're going to be killing animals in heaven. Vegetarianism is probably the best diet. I believe that. But I do not believe with clean foods you're looking at a sin. You're looking at something that's a little less unhealthy. In fact, Ellen White says eating is not a test. She says from the beginning of her ministry to the end of her ministry that even unclean foods is not a test. We've made it into a test, but she says it's not a test. I taught about 7 hours of lecture on this, dealing with the historical documents when I was with Andrews. You're dealing with unhealthy things and things that are more unhealthy than others, okay? And some of them God does call an abomination. You can really do weird stuff. Stick with the gospel, okay?
Amen.
Stick with the center. If we could only get people to stick to the center, we'd be all right.